Welcome to another video on Asia Engulfed. My first video was about naval movement, and it also included naval reaction movement. This one is about about supply, and particularly about the Japanese supply network. I've put a number of dice on the board to remind me of a couple of key points that I've been wanting to mention. Now, as you can see, I've laid out a number of orange circles, basically with numbers on them ranging from 1 to 3, and they match the number of ships that you see in this, in particular sea zones. This one, for instance, has just one, so if I wanted to trace supply through that sea zone, I would actually have to put a supply marker there. This one, I didn't put one there because it seems to me that it's not necessary to trace supply back to Japan from mainland China this way, because it can also be done through either one of these ports, or there's actually 3 of them, and then through this sea zone to Kyushu, and from there by land and straits to the other one, to the other ones, because of course the idea is to spend as few transport points as necessary, because it actually takes away from your ability to strat move units or to make amphibious landings with non-marine units. That is only true for the Japanese player. The Allies do not suffer from any such restrictions, because historically they didn't. So the Japanese actually start off with a transport capacity of 26 in this scenario. Their current transport network uses up 25, I believe, which means that they have 1 transport point remaining with which they could do a strategic move, or, as I said, an amphibious landing with 1 infantry unit. A marine unit does not require transport points to actually do that amphibious invasion. Now, what else did I want to mention? Well, number 2 here. That's actually what I've been wanting to show you as well. This one is supplied, it costs 1. This one, I did not put a supply marker in there because I believe it's not necessary, because it would be necessary to try supply to British Borneo, but it can go this way as well, so basically around it. So you want to be as economical as possible with your transport markers, so you have some left. So I believe this one is not necessary. Same one goes for here. Number 5 here, I did not place one here because it's a very expensive one. It takes 3 transport points, and the only thing that actually happens is that this unit in Tarawa, a garrison unit, is flipped over, which means that it's still in partial supply. That only happens on islands, I believe, which are the circles there. But they have relatively minor effects on garrison units. They are still in partial supply, and that does mean that they cannot receive any hit bonuses other than from a banzai attack, I believe. But other than that, it's really not too bad, and I didn't think it was worth spending 3 transport points on that. Number 6, that's also an interesting one. What I mean by number 6 is simply the die that indicates to me that there is something I wanted to say about this. The Japanese can also use, I believe it's only the Japanese, they can also use their submarine unit to act as a transport, which is what I did here because I didn't want to spend any more transport points. And you actually place this marker on it then to denote that it's actually not doing anything offensively, but that it's being used in the supply chain. Number 7 here, these units are in a contested area, it's even an enemy controlled area. but they can trace out of it, for instance, to Thailand or through to French Indochina, and from there trace back to Japan. So that's something else you can do. So, well, that's basically how the Japanese supply network works. Also something that's worth mentioning, and there are more intricacies and details I could mention about this, but there's a lot to say about it actually, so I am afraid that you will actually have to read the rules very carefully. But what this symbol means is that you can trace partial supply to it if for whatever reason you could not trace supply back to Japan, and you could trace to French Indochina, for instance, and there are more places like that, Manchukuo, for instance, as well, up here in the north. You can never trace supply through, you can trace it from enemy controlled areas such as Burma here. You cannot trace it through enemy controlled areas, and you cannot trace it through sea zones where the enemy has dominant influence. I've discussed influence in the previous video when I talked about naval movement. The only exception to that is the submarine unit, which you can also use in such cases. So even if the sea zone in question is under dominant enemy influence, so you can still do that, which is not the case here. I just didn't want to use any more transport points, which is why I elected to use the submarine unit for supply purposes instead. So I hope this clears up most of the questions you could have about supply. And thank you again for watching, and see you on the next video.